The course featured signature steel plates at 300, 500, and a long-range 800 yards, each step a rise in difficulty designed to test both gear and grit. Young Marines prepped their state-of-the-art rifles, bipods biting into the dirt, optics glinting like predator eyes. And then quietly, almost unnoticed, 90-year-old Elias Eli Monroe lifted his weathered 1943 Springfield M1903A3, a relic that looked more museum piece than weapon. 30 seconds later, those elite warriors would begin to understand what World War II had carved into men like him. Some skills don't fade with age, they get sharper. Before we dive in, tell us where you're tuning in from and subscribe if you believe combat-forged experience never truly dies. Because Eli's story will prove that challenging a World War II marksman may be the greatest mistake you'll ever make. The Remembrance. Marksmanship exhibit at Fort Seabrook Training Grounds drew hundreds of spectators, cameras poised, families waving flags. The Marine Corps promised a showcase of modern precision shooting, a celebration of progress and power. On stage were the cutting-edge tools of war Mach-13 sniper rifles with suppressors, M27 infantry automatic rifles dressed in glass optics, ballistic computers humming out perfect dope charts. Each Marine was a symbol of millions in training and research, their methods distilled from decades of modern doctrine. Their shots would be clean, clinical, textbook. Eli Monroe had attended every year. Never as a competitor, always as a quiet shadow among the crowd. Cane in hand, eyes sharper than his step. To most, he was another old veteran honoring the fallen. But behind the faded Legion cap lay a man who had once zeroed iron sights under tracer fire at Peleliu. A sniper whose breath control and instinct had saved entire platoons. Staff Sergeant Marcus Webb led the squad this year, 6 elite Marines ready to prove that no generation had ever been better prepared. His shooters embodied the pinnacle of marksmanship doctrine technology integrated. Wind drift calculated, bullet drop solved before the trigger broke. Corporal Jake Ramirez, just 22, shouldered his M27 with advanced optics capable of engagements at distances Eli had once paced out with boots and intuition. Lance Corporal Sarah Kim, Scout Sniper School graduate, checked the suppressor on her rifle, every movement practiced, clinical. Perfect. And then Eli coughed, shifted his cane aside, and asked a single question that froze the squad mid-prep mind if an old man takes a shot. The announcer's voice rolled across the bleachers like a parade drum. Next stage engagements at 300, 500, and finally 800 yards. Families leaned forward, eager for the clang of steel. Commentators hyped every tool: laser rangefinders, kestrels, ballistic apps worth more than sedans. The Marines looked razor-sharp, rifles immaculate, optics glowing in the sun. In the crowd, Eli Monroe shifted on his bench. He wasn't measuring technology. He was measuring men. Shoulders jerked on recoil, eyes darted back to screens before trusting what the reticle told them. The rhythm was practiced, but not lived. To the crowd, flawless. To him, hollow, during a pause. He leaned on his cane and called out, "Young man," Eli rasped. "You're holding that rifle like you don't trust it." Corporal Jake Ramirez spun, startled. "Sir, this rifle's a precision instrument. Costs more than most folks' cars." Eli's nod was slow. "Weathered. I'm sure it does. But instruments don't make marksmen. Trust and training do." The line cut through the bleachers like tracer fire. Marines gathered, jaws tight. Staff Sergeant Marcus Webb stepped forward, chin squared. "Sir, this is a professional demonstration. These Marines are trained to the highest standards." Eli's faint smile belonged to someone who'd seen beaches run red. "Son, I've watched your squad for an hour. Impressive rifles. But half your shooters are fighting them instead of working with them. Lance Corporal Sarah Kim, fresh from Scout Sniper School, folded her arms. With respect, sir, our scores surpass anything from your generation. Our doctrine is refinement. Eli's gaze sharpened. Like iron sights locked on a silhouette, Score's paper drill's real marksmanship is steel under wind, rain, and fear screaming at you to miss. It's knowing you'll land the shot when the gear fails. That last word seemed to echo, and then, as if scripted, the loudspeakers sputtered. Electronic scoring flickered, numbers jumping nonsense before vanishing. The announcer's voice cracked. Overheating glare has disrupted the sensors, with signal interference compromising accuracy. Officials will enact the tradition clause per regulations. If electronic systems fail, the match reverts to manual scoring with iron sights only. Targets remain at 300, 500, and 800 yards. The air went still. Iron sights at 800 wasn't routine training, it was a challenge outside their doctrine. Daunting even for modern snipers raised on glass. Hundreds of eyes turned, not to Webb, not to Kim, to the old man with the cane and the battered Springfield case at his feet. Eli tapped the latch with one finger. "If your rifles are too pretty for it," he said evenly, "I'll take the shot." The Marines shifted uneasily. They had trained with $1,000 optics, ballistic calculators, laser-confirmed ranges. Now they were asked to strip all of it away. Iron sights at 800 yards felt like being told to throw a javelin across a canyon. Eli rose slowly, every joint groaning in chorus with his cane. But when he cracked open the battered Springfield M1903A3 case, the air changed. The rifle wasn't just steel and wood, it was scarred history. Stock darkened where sweat had soaked through decades ago. He knelt, movements deliberate. The bolt glided like it had 1,000 times before. One by one, he thumbed in 36 rounds, their brass dulled by age but flawless. He didn't look at the announcers or the crowd. He looked at the field. 300 yards. The scrub pattern told him how wind cut left to right. 500 yards. The mirage shimmered a little higher, bending light just enough. 800 yards. A plate the size of a man's chest, shimmering silver in the haze. For a Marine with glass. Manageable. For iron sights, a prayer. Unless you had made that prayer under fire. "Sir, you don't have to." Webb began. But Eli raised a hand. "I've done worse with less." He lay prone. No bipod. Just sling tension wrapping his forearm. His breathing slowed until even the cicadas seemed loud. The front sight post swam, then steadied, carving out the center of that steel moon in the distance. First shot, 300 yards, cracked. The steel sang instantly. No hesitation. Second shot, another ring, cleaner. He reloaded with calm precision, like decades had compressed into this one string of fire. At 500, the challenge deepened. Marines squinted through iron they barely trusted. Eli adjusted elevation by instinct, knowing how 30-06 arced after 500. His round struck near center. Another followed, slightly high, but still on plate. He nodded once. "Satisfied," the young Marines whispered. Not mocking now. How's he doing that without a rangefinder? Because Eli didn't calculate. He conversed. With the wind, with the terrain, with a rifle that had once been an extension of himself. The announcer's voice cracked. Final stage 800 yards. Iron sights only. The crowd hushed. Sunlight flattened. The mirage thinned. Just enough for a man who knew what to look for. Eli drew breath deep, let half of it go, and held. His finger caressed the trigger like an old friend. The Springfield barked. A long pause, then a clang rolled across the range. Deep and undeniable. Gasps rippled. Marines froze, and Eli, calm as if nothing unusual had happened, whispered to himself, still listens. He racked another round. The crowd leaned forward. Was it luck or mastery forged in war? The final plate stood in the distance, a pale circle shimmering like a moon half buried in heat, 36 inches across, 800 yards away. On paper it was possible. In reality, even Marines with modern optics sweated that distance, and now they were being told to strike it blind through irons. Staff Sergeant Webb's squad fired first. They adjusted carefully, aligning iron posts they barely trusted. At 300 and 500, they managed scattered hits respectable, but shaky without their optics. When they reached 800, discipline faltered. Some rounds went wide. Some clipped dust short. One managed to graze. The crowd clapped politely. For a doctrine built on tech, it wasn't shameful, but it wasn't the showcase they'd promised. Then Eli lowered himself prone again. The Springfield rested against his shoulder like it had been waiting decades for this stage. He wrapped the sling around his arm, locking bone to wood, steady as a steel girder. The world narrowed just him, the front sight and the far disk glowing in the afternoon light. His breathing flattened. His pulse slowed. He felt the slight crosswind combing the grass. Less than a full minute, but enough to matter. He adjusted by feel, a calculation written into his bones long before ballistics apps existed. Crack! The first round tore free, echoing downrange. A heartbeat later, clang. Dead center. The crowd gasped. Marines leaned forward. Even Webb whispered, "No way." Eli cycled the bolt. Clack, slide, lock. Another round chambered. Another breath bled out. Crack. The second strike hit left of center. Still solid steel. Murmurs turned into silence. The kind of silence that means disbelief is losing to awe. The third shot came. Clang, almost overlapping the first. The spotter's jaw hung open. That's a group," he muttered. Fourth round slight nick at the rim. Eli allowed himself the faintest shake of the head. Like an instructor correcting his own student, he adjusted. Settled deeper, pressed through the trigger. Fifth shot clang, back to center. 5 shots total, 4 clean hits, 1 graze, at 800 yards. Through iron sights. The range didn't cheer. They didn't know how. Instead, the sound of steel still ringing across the flats seemed louder than applause could ever be. Eli eased the bolt open and let the last casing roll into the dirt. His face was calm, not triumphant. To him it wasn't spectacle. It was muscle memory, discipline, survival. Staff Sergeant Webb walked up, helmet tucked under his arm. He didn't look defensive now. He looked like a man who'd just seen his entire training reframed in 5 pulls of a trigger. "Sir," his voice caught. "How did you do that?" Eli brushed dust off the Springfield, hands steady as stone. "Wind doesn't lie," he said quietly. "And fundamentals don't forget." The Marines didn't argue. They listened. For the first time all day, they weren't students of technology. They were students of a man who had just proven mastery outlasts machines. When the firing line emptied, the chemistry of the field had changed. What had begun as spectacle ended as instruction. Marines surrounded Eli, no longer defensive but open, asking about stance, pulse control, and how to estimate holdover without a computer. He answered each question with practiced precision, how to read mirage lines, how to use distant landmarks for range estimation, how to let the sight settle instead of forcing it. An impromptu clinic unfolded on the flat of the range. Eli helped a young corporal correct cheek weld, taped a tiny note on another man's stock about breathing cadence, and showed a spotter how to call a wind change by reading dust. His teaching was simple, not flashy fundamentals first, Then devices as aids, not crutches. As he returned the Springfield to its case, reverence folded over the metal like an old flag. The rifle, like its owner, had proven something larger than marksmanship. It proved that skills forged under pressure endure, adapted into wisdom that can be passed forward. A young Marine named Ramirez asked, "Sir, what should we remember?" Most Eli's eyes crinkled. He held their attention as if speaking a final order. Your equipment is only as good as your fundamentals. Your fundamentals are only as strong as your understanding. Technology can help you shoot, but experience will teach you to fight. They left the range that evening not simply impressed, but taught. Departments would talk of reintroducing more iron sight training. Not to reject progress, but to ensure that when the lights go out, the man behind the rifle still knows how to listen. Where are you watching from? Tell us about a time experience trumped equipment. And if you believe fundamentals still matter, subscribe and share this lesson.